Picture the worst tenant you've ever heard of. Months of no rent, a trashed unit, a lawsuit when you finally get them out. Now here's the real scary part. On paper, that tenant probably looked fine. Good credit score, income at least 3 times rent, every one of the typical boxes checked. But that's the problem. The typical boxes everyone checks are the wrong ones. 3 times rent doesn't really work. Credit scores aren't necessarily what they seem, and most of the industry takes the shortcut anyway. We don't. We call it extreme screening, and it's a difference between protecting your investment and losing months of your life to a bad tenant. Let's get into it. Before anything else, let's talk about fair housing. HUD sends out secret shoppers, and if you get caught discriminating, settlements average over 50 grand. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 bans discrimination on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, and familial status. Many state and local laws add more like age, marital status, source of income, and sexual orientation. So know your local laws. The key, apply the exact same criteria to every single applicant. It's not easy, but you can't use different standards for different houses or different people. Proving otherwise to HUD or a judge, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, so don't play with it. Now, credit scores, they're not what they seem. The Great Recession happened because lenders looked only at the score, not the depth behind it. You had the number, you got the loan, and it blew up the housing market. So don't stop at the score. We look for a deep enough credit report to back it up. Ideally, 2 accounts at least 24 months old and at least 2 that are 12 months old. Without that depth, the score barely means anything. We also currently ignore student loans. Deferred or being paid, we don't know. The rules change every few months and nobody can seem to keep track. By the way, watch for certain bank accounts that actually split your paycheck into a loan that you repay yourself. It creates a flawless trade line on a credit report because how do you miss a payment to yourself? It actually abuses the system a little bit, so we don't count those either. Next, a thorough background check. Checking not only the credit, but public records, sex offender registries, criminal backgrounds, every option turned on. Don't cheap out here. It's not worth letting the wrong person in to save a few dollars. Your application should show and request the last 2 years of employment, including any gaps, the last 2 years of residency. We also want a previous landlord, unless they've been in their current home for at least 5 years. A previous landlord gives you the truth. They've got nothing to lose. Whereas a current landlord might give you a little bit of a spin to get rid of a bad tenant that they don't want anymore. To be blunt, we can't process your application without this information. That's what we tell all the applicants. Nearly 40% of the applications we get are missing some data because tenants want to take shortcuts and assume we don't need it. One caveat, some states bar asking about criminal history on the application itself. You can actually evaluate it if your background check shows it, but you can't ask up front. By the way, always include a signed dated general authorization form where the applicant gives written permission to verify job history, banks, payment history, whatever. A mom and pop landlord might chat with you over the phone and give you information, but an apartment complex or a property management company, they won't say a word without that form. We don't trust the landlord information that an applicant hands us. That landlord might be a friend or family member, so we find the real owner of record through public records. We'll even use a Google Street View to go and spot a management sign on a building, then Google the number. We also use whitepages.com to confirm we're talking to the right person. When we can, we actually ask for a rent ledger instead of just a fill-in-the-blank form because the ledger shows deeper truth. Were the tenant a few days late or were they paying at the end of every month? That makes a big difference. One scam we see a lot, applicants hiding a bad current landlord by claiming they live with a friend or relative. That's why we run a 7-year address history and cross-reference it. And here's a newer challenge. Courts are actually locking down records and not sharing with the credit bureaus. So background checks can miss things. So we take the next step, which is looking all the applicants' addresses and go to the court records directly ourselves. In Metro Detroit, most of these are online. 10 to 20% of the time, we find an eviction or judgment the bureaus haven't caught yet. Now let's talk about income. Over 90% of pay stubs today are computer generated with year-to-date totals, and most people are actually paid by direct deposit. So we don't understand the obsession that the industry has with collecting 2 or 3 pay stubs. A single year-to-date pay stub tells us everything we need to know. Take the income, divide by the date, and you've got a true monthly average. Fake pay stubs used to be easy to spot via mismatched fonts from copy and paste. Now people build them in accounting software with exact numbers, real logos, real addresses. You can actually Google that. Google fake pay stub, and there'll be several companies with legal disclaimers saying that they can provide you something. They look completely legitimate, so a pay stub on its own isn't enough anymore. That's why we cross-reference with a bank statement to confirm the payroll deposits are real. Faking these, though, is the next frontier, and AI will probably get there, but they're not there yet with faking bank statements. But there's also Plaid, P-L-A-I-D, which connects straight to a bank and pulls a full year of real data. So you can't really fake that. And that's where verifications are heading. The bank statement does one more job. It shows whether they can actually afford the move-in. Do they have the money right now, or where are they getting it from? And watch the spending. We've seen applicants drop $2,000 or $3,000 a month on online betting. Why is that a big deal? Because it could be a sign of an addiction where they're going to choose betting over paying the rent, but give you another excuse. Now put it all together with debt to income, not the old 3 times the rent rule. 3 times rent ignores the car payments and the credit cards. And most tenants, actually, you can Google this, prioritize their car payment because in their mind, they need to get to work. Also, in many states, a car can be repossessed faster than they can be evicted. Plenty of the tenants know that. So we run a real debt to income ratio, just like a bank does when you're getting a mortgage. We built an Excel spreadsheet years ago that calculates monthly income 4 different ways. Year to date, from their hourly or salary, from last year's W-2, and from a blended year to date plus last year figure. 4 numbers, we compare them. If they vary by more than 10%, we dig in to find out why. Sometimes it's a raise, great news, but sometimes it's a layoff, a seasonal job, or other probationary period or something like that, but it creates more risk and we want to investigate it. Our standard ceiling is 45% debt to income, and will flex higher if we have strong compensating factors like reserves, a solid savings pattern, long time on the job, something like that. One more rule, anyone 18 or older living in the home who isn't a legal dependent of another occupant has to sign the lease. And we'll also want a little bit of background information about them to make sure they're not going to be a problem. If your 20-year-old student is you're still claiming on your tax returns, show us the return, and they don't have to sign the lease. Same for anyone that the applicant might have a guardianship over. Quick note on tenant classes, most screening advice online is written for Class A with 680 plus credit scores. In our world, Class B goes from 680 to 620, Class C 620 to 560, and Class D is 560 and below. But credit isn't everything. We've seen great credit tenants absolutely wreck a place. So for any applicant at or below 620 credit score, we had a home interview. Apply the same objective way to every applicant who meets that threshold so we stay compliant with fair housing. We tell them up front it's a standard part of our process, a short video at their current home so we can confirm their identity and avoid any fake tenant fraud. Then we ask to see the kitchen, the bathroom, and often the basement or one other room. And we want to see what the condition of that is. Because how those look right now is how they're going to make the rental look within 90 days. Let's land where we started, fair housing. We can't warn you enough about it. Whatever your process is, standardize it and run it the exact same way every single time. No discrimination on a race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familiar status. And mind your state and local rules on age, marital status, and source of income, sexual orientation. Get consistent at this and it gets faster and easier. And it protects your investment. One last thing, and we know this is a lot, that's the point. Cutting corners on screening is how you end up with an eviction, the damage and the lawsuit. If you'd rather not run all of this on every applicant yourself, it's exactly what we do for every owner we work with on every property. Reach out and we'll screen your next tenant like it's our own. And if this saved you a future headache, subscribe. We break down what the screening industry would rather you didn't know.